Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here, and welcome back to another TV log where I give my pretty raw, unfiltered first impressions look at a given episode or episodes. And today we are looking at the very first two episodes, the first half hour of the new Disney XD show, Milo Murphy's Law, starring Weird Al. The series has technically not premiered yet, if you're wondering how I watched it. iTunes currently, and when this video is made currently, has a thing where you can get the first episode for free. So if you're watching this when it came out and you want to see the episodes, go check it out on iTunes. It should be free at least for a little while. Um, so the first thing to say about this show, I guess, is that it's made by the people who make Phineas and Ferb, and it is very, very obvious. Just right off the bat in terms of style, just visuals, and also the way they tell the story. And speaking of visuals, I guess the other thing I have to kind of get out of the way first is that the show looks beautiful. Like, Disney XD has some really, really beautiful animation and backgrounds. Like, the animation in general is good, but especially those backgrounds, man. They do a really good job of making it look really layered and really detailed. And if you were to compare it to something from like the 60s or something, it's amazing how far we've come in terms of what we can make our backgrounds look like, and just how amazingly detailed they are. The other thing I guess I have to say is Weird Al plays Milo, and Weird Al is just a fantastic, fantastic voice actor. He's a great singer. He's an awesome guy in general, but he's a really, really good voice actor too. He's been in a number of things in recent times. He's been on many, many current shows as just a guest spot, and now he's finally getting to star in his own series, and I think that's just fantastic. I hope Weird Al kind of ends up going like the Mark Hamill route, where in his older age he starts to take on more and more lengthy voice acting roles and just kind of does that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love his music, and I hope he never stops making that, but I think he has a real talent for it. He has a real interesting voice, and just his inflection and everything is really interesting, and I think that he suits the character of Milo very, very well. At first, when I was watching, I was a little worried, like, all right, am I going to hear Weird Al this entire time? Am I not going to be able to be immersed because I'm distracted by it? But after a little while, no, it's just the voice that fits the character, and it blends in, and you don't care anymore. At least I didn't. I wasn't distracted by it, is what I mean to say. Um, so let's see. So in terms of the first episode, which the first 11 minutes here, which it plays out like the first episode of a series where you have the new kid, and the new kid isn't Milo, but it's Milo's new friend, and his friend is introduced to Milo and his antics and what happens with him, and therefore the audience is introduced, and it's just kind of like a classic way to introduce characters to the audience by having the new kid move in, or by having the main character be the new kid. Good way to set up the premise. Um, but in general, I really like the first episode. It's all about just Milo and the new kid trying to get to school despite the fact that all of these really bad things happen to them. And I think that that's like it's a great setup to what I assume the series is going to be like, in that just bad things happen to Milo. Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and Milo is in canon the descendant of the original namesake of Murphy's Law. So it's really fitting, and just this first episode here is really, really just fast paced and exciting, and it just kind of throws you into the mix here with all sorts of craziness that goes on. There's wolves, there's bees, and just insanity. And then that all comes to a head when just randomly towards the end of the episode they're abducted by aliens, and that just really I made me just kind of scratch my head and was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be one of these shows. All right, I'm okay with that. Um, so yeah, so I guess I really, really did enjoy the first episode. Great animation, great voice acting, great. Just it's not even the story is just that it's basically these characters try to get to school despite all of these obstacles. But it's how I think what is going to make this show good, if it ends up being good, is not just that bad things happen to Milo, but it's specifically what he does to get himself out of the bad things. It's like anyone can, you could throw any number of bad things at characters and have stupid ways that they get out of it. But if you can write a story where all these bad things happen, all of these little conflicts happen, and the character is able to interestingly get out of these situations through use of wit, through use of just some sort of interesting doodad or something, that can make for a really interesting viewing experience. And that's kind of what happens in the episode, and that's what I'm hoping will happen throughout the whole show. Um, I guess my one fear for the show in general, and this is something that Phineas and Ferb, it's impossible to not compare the show to Phineas and Ferb. Not that it's like, identical or anything like that, but it's the same creators, very similar character design, very similar in the way they play certain things out. And even, the dog in this show, I assume, based upon the 2 episodes I've seen, his gimmick is that he always just randomly shows up to help Milo out of whatever jam. He just pops up. And so even he is kind of like comparable, obviously, to Perry, where Perry goes missing in the episode and then pops back up later, for obviously spy reasons. But Milo's dog just pops in at random times and helps him out. But anyway, my point being, it's very easy to compare the show to Phineas and Ferb, and I think the biggest problem with Phineas and Ferb was that it it had a formula, and it did its formula really well, and it did subvert its formula in interesting ways as the show went on. But even with all of its subversions, at a certain point, you're just kind of tired of the formula. After like 4 seasons of it, you're just kind of like, all right, we get it. And I'm afraid that might happen with Milo Murphy's Law, because I don't want the show to just be like bad things happen to Milo over and over and over again, and because that might be interesting for a few episodes, but without kind of something else there in the show, that's gonna become a formula, and that's gonna become boring. So I'm worried about that further down the line, and again, that's probably not a problem that's gonna be evident in the next few episodes, even in the first season. It's probably gonna get at least a season 2, I hope. Um, but I'd worry for maybe like 3 and onwards of it just becoming a little too formulaic without something else. But I can say that from the second episode that I watched, the second one packaged in the half hour there, the Undergrounders, the mole people episode, the show definitely wants to do more than just have bad things happen to Milo. It seems to be, and this is what I'm hoping, that the bad things are just going to be a starting off point for a lot of stories, and they'll be like a recurring thing in the episodes. But like the whole thing with the underground people and all that, like, sure, it was Milo's bad luck that got them to that point, but that whole story really didn't have too much to do with it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that using the bad luck Milo tropes, or using the bad things that happen to Milo as plot devices in order to get Milo into some interesting situations, I think that is going to be what I hope the show is going to pursue, instead of just episodes where it's just bad things happen to Milo and he just has to overcome every single one of them over and over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? I hope that the show has more depth to that. And I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I'm not trying to claim that like the show's gonna become stale and repetitive, because I don't know. The show is very in its infancy, and so I'm not claiming that it's going to happen. I'm claiming that is something that the writers will have to be very careful about as the show goes on. And I take it that the 2 guys have learned their lesson from Phineas and Ferb, and know better than to try to make something that was as strictly formulaic as Phineas and Ferb again. And that's not to discredit Phineas and Ferb. Again, it did what it did very well. But there's only so far you can take that basic premise, even with twists and turns. And in terms of the second episode of this show, I can't say I liked it as much as I liked the first episode. It wasn't like bad or anything, but it did kind of just seem to be like an okay episode of a show. It's like, all right, you got the kid that's claustrophobic. Put him in a claustrophobic situation at the climax of the episode to help the other characters out, and bada bing, bada boom. There's an underground civilization because that's been done a number of times. It's okay. That's what I thought about it. I did really like the first episode, which is ironic because the first episode is nothing but here. Let's throw a bunch of random obstacles in Milo's way and have him escape them. Um, but I think that really worked there. But I don't really want to see it again and again and again. Is basically what I'm saying. So basically, yeah, I think the show has a lot of potential, and I will be following it, and I hope that it really does well. Partially because I really like Weird Al, but partially because I like the two guys that make the show, Dan and Swampy. I think that they are very clever writers and very witty guys. And I think that like coming off of a really loved series and heading into a new one is like a great place to be because they can learn from experiences and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls they made with Phineas and Ferb and make Milo Murphy's Law be a fantastic show. So yeah, what did you guys think of these first two episodes? Did you like them, not like them? Do you think you're gonna follow the series, not follow the series? Let me know what you think. I definitely enjoyed the first episode, and I thought the second episode was okay. But again, in any first season, in any first few episodes, you're going to have episodes that are just okay. Just by like design, because they have to set up some certain things, and the writers have to kind of start somewhere. So I'm like, I think it's a perfectly good thing that the second episode of the show is at least just okay, and I wasn't expecting it to be brilliant. But I do think that they're really onto something here. I think they have a good idea. I just hope that they really see it through and they use their gimmick, so to speak, to great effect to create great stories instead of just relying on that time and time again. So with that, Pie Guy Rules out.